Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of the Matt and Shane show with me, Matt Goddard at the Boxing Locker, and my good friend Shane over here.
Hey guys.
Shane is, for those who haven't seen yet, Shane is over in Sparta, North Carolina. As you can see in the background, he runs Crowley Boxing Club, and he's done some good things over there. So, anybody in the area, make sure you do check him out. How are we doing, Shane? You okay?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, doing pretty good. Hope you're doing well. Let's go over some stuff.
Let's crack on. Cool. So, subject matter numero uno. What would you like to speak about first, my friend?
Yeah, so I remember when I first started like following you, I was always kind of curious a little bit about you and your career. So I'd like to ask some questions about that. Um, if you were to start again, like if you were to go way back to the very start of your boxing career, what would you do differently, if anything? Is there anything
Um,
that stands out to you where you're like, man, I wish I had known this. Like, I wish I had done this differently.
I think the biggest thing for me was I would have gone to more other clubs sparring and sparred lots more different styles, and sort of tested myself a lot earlier. And it would have given me a lot more. It took me a lot of time to build up the confidence to know just how good I was and to actually trust in my abilities to use the skills that I had. Um, I And
That's
I'm not
tricky.
meaning
Yeah.
to say this from an arrogance perspective, but I had a
Right.
fantastic skill set, but I didn't have an enormous amount of self-confidence, and I didn't trust myself to perform in the way that I was capable of performing because I was used to just sparring at the same gym with the same people day in, day out. And so when confronted by different styles, I sort of reverted back to being probably a little bit too meek with it and not utilizing it anywhere near enough. So that would be one thing for sure. A lot more sparring at other gyms.
Try
Um,
to break out of the echo chamber that you get
yeah,
when
yeah. And also
training at
just
any
just
one
to be
club.
confronted by different styles and different attitudes and different environments, because a massive part of boxing is obviously the hostility of, and I don't mean hostility as in the crowd want to hurt you. I just mean in any environment you're under a lot of pressure when you're having a
I
fight with
I've
somebody
been
that
in
you're
I've
watching.
been in spots where the crowd actually wanted to hurt me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean,
Sorry.
it does happen. It does happen.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of, walking into other people's gyms and kind of feeling that pressure, that intensity, feeling that um, the stress on you when you do that, and learning to cope with that appropriately, and also just as I said, confronting different styles and experiencing how other clubs, other coaches, and other fighters work.
What's the hesitancy to do that? So uh I've come to notice that uh even if you're an outsider, like I'm a bit of an outcast, so when I walk into gyms, I'm not really accepted by people, but that doesn't mean that people want to hurt me. So if I can get over the strangeness of it, I can walk into a new club, and once people understand that I can be trusted, that I'm not there to prove my ego or hurt myself, you'll find that most boxing gyms are pretty much the same thing. It's a group of guys that just want to get better at what they're doing,
I think a lot of the time the issue isn't necessarily a fear of the friendliness of the place. I think the issue is more a fear
proving themselves.
of it exposing themselves to, perhaps exposing them as not as good as they hope to be, um, or working outside the framework of what they know, fear of the things that are different, like the coaches say, right, guys, everybody's got to do 20 minutes of skipping, and they go, oh my God, that was different. I went to a couple of county training
Yeah.
county training camps, and we would go there and they'd say, right, everybody go out, you're going to go running. And we'd run for 30 minutes before we'd do any boxing, which was insane to me because I always did my 2 hours of boxing, and then that was me done. And then I'd run in the afternoon or the morning, and I'd do the rest of my training outside of the gym. So it was peculiar,
You
but
got the perspective to see the difference of like practicing your technique when you're fresh, which was what you were always used to. And then you're like, dude, these guys get tired first. Like, this kind of
exactly.
sucks. And it's a
Yeah.
totally different thing. Every club, even me, we all coaches, we kind of tend to, for our own like personal security, internal security, we like to think that we're doing it right. So when we go to another place, it can be like, oh, they do it like this. For example, I had some jujitsu guys come into my club recently as I've started doing a jujitsu class. And personally, I don't like anybody doing anything unless they warm up, just a little bit of a warm up, something. And I just had them run through one of our quick boxing warm ups, just a 2 3 minute round warm up, quick. And they were sweating and kind of like worked out like really hard just from the warm up that we normally do. And I saw from their social media that they started to include a warm up in their scheduling. So it made me feel good that I might have left a positive impact on them where they're like, "Oh, I see the value in doing this."
Well,
That's
good
what
coaching has to come from a place of humility because otherwise you don't have the best interests of the fighters at heart. It's not a case of my idea is best and that's that. I can
yeah,
believe that the way I do things is best, but I have to be open to the fact that it may not be. So all the while I'm willing to discover if something is better, then I'm there to do what needs to be done.
I've had my students ask me if they should go to other clubs, and I'd like to get your opinion on this, so leave a little note there. I tell them always, go, try it out, see if there's something different, see if there's something new. And they're normally afraid their thing is, well, what if I get hurt? Or what if I'm wrong? I'm like, well, you trust what we do in here. Going to another club isn't where you test yourself to find out whether what you're doing is right or wrong. We have tournaments, competitions. We can get an amateur bout for that. That's what that's for. Going to another club, I tell them, is an opportunity to just get a new perspective and see how other people are doing things differently. So, like, if I can tell them, hey, take the fear and the ego out of it, I tell them go to as many clubs as you can, try to get the perspective from as many coaches as you can. I tell them all to honestly try to talk to you. Get your perspective on things because it's only going to help. Hell,
I
it's going to
think
make me a better coach if it gets back to me and I see the value in it. And even better yet, if I see like, oh, I'm doing this wrong and I can fix it, that's fantastic.
the only challenge you have there is and this happens a lot in boxing, is you invest a lot of time in getting someone to a certain level, and the grass is always greener. And if you attend other
Mhm.
gyms and you think, oh, I like the way they do things over here, this is exciting, and say I invest 18 months into a complete novice, I teach them all of the basics, all of the fundamental skills, I teach them how to box, and then somewhere else looks a little bit more exciting, so they up and leave. Um, and
Yeah.
and and then you go, well, we still had plenty to do. We still had lots of progress to make, and everything that you can currently do is the result of my coaching and my teaching. Um,
Yay.
and but listen, the name of the sport is very much loyalty while loyalty suits in boxing, and that's so what I would say is, and where I would always advocate that is sparring. As I said, spar in as many different gyms as you can. While you go sparring, train the way they train, do their training session, do their sparring, do everything, then come back to the gym and crack on. As much
Don't
as
throw the
possible, the
baby out with
coach of the
that.
fighter should be there as well because that's beneficial. It means that I can monitor their sparring and see how they're getting on, but also it means that I can see that no one's trying to do anything kind of underhand
Ah.
or get them kind of hurt or stitched up in any way. So that adds an element of security for the fighter as well. Um, so yeah, I mean, I would definitely advocate the most gyms you can possibly visit, the more the better. Um, in that scenario where you're with your coach and you have an opportunity to experience it, but from the coach's perspective as well, because it's easy to go into another gym and they want you to do everything a certain way. And say I've worked with you, for example, on having a slightly more bladed stance with the thumb to chin and then the lead hand floating about and active. And then they go to the gym and all of a sudden they're saying, yeah, hands up, like get yourself there, box there, and then
Yep.
you're undoing good habits and you're introducing chaos into your practice, and that becomes difficult then. So I get what you're saying, and I agree in a lot of ways, but I think there has to be an element of tempering the experience to ensure that it's not diluting the quality of what you're
So
doing.
much in the way that you should be going into a spar. I just went over this with the guys. I said, the person, all right, I said, oftentimes when somebody spars with me, I'm not trying to beat them. I'm just practicing something. And the fact that I have a clear game plan and a directive means that I'm going to look better and probably beat the person who's sparring just to hit someone, to win, whatever. There's times to practice that, like the desire to win. But I said it's smart to take a step back and go, all right, well, we're gonna throw punches at each other. What the am I gonna do? Let me plan it out. What am I gonna do? Let me do it right now. So if you're gonna go to another gym, I think a similar mindset would be extremely useful. Before you walk in, you're gonna go, what am I going to get out of this? Am I going to radically change my entire perspective? No, that's not safe. Am I going to allow them to upseat my internal security? Am I going to let them make me less confident in my abilities? No. I'm going to go there with my coach, preferably, and we're going to see if there isn't something here that can make me a better fighter.
Yeah, I mean, from a sparring perspective, all the time the idea is to learn anyway. So it doesn't matter whether you're sparring in your
Right.
own gym or whether you're going to another gym. You hear lots of stories about this is not a true thing. I'm just picking a name out. Terence
Yeah.
Crawford went to blah blah's gym and blah blah knocked out Terence Crawford. And we used to hear it with Floyd Mayweather all the time and stuff. And again, that isn't a true thing. I'm just saying a name that
No, I
people
got
know.
you. Yeah.
But so if somebody, whenever I hear things like that, I think, yeah, but what you're forgetting is that fighter may have gone to that gym with the intention of working against that style of that fighter to practice one thing specifically. They've now discovered that that doesn't work, or they might have discovered that it's open in a certain way. Or so if you're approaching your sparring as a learning process and a chance to develop and grow as a fighter, then you're doing it right. I mean, it's in Britain particularly, we've got a real problem with sparring just being about who can take the most lumps out of the other person and who
America
can
has
do the
that
most
too.
damage. And yeah, I mean,
The Rocky movies have kind of contributed to that. Like when you come here, everyone thinks it's high guard, chin over your front knee. It's not about how hard you can get, it's about how many hits you can take and keep going. It's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
how about how many times you can hit them without getting hit? I think
That's
that's a little bit
exactly
better.
that. That's the mastery of the whole sport. Pugilism is hit and not get hit. It's
But
not about
that mentality is pervasive here as well, and it
yeah,
affects my business. The ignorance that's involved with what it is that I'm trying to do. The people in this town tend to think that it's violence, and I'm trying to teach young men violence. There's so much more control to it. Sorry, I had a
no.
tangent.
So no, exactly. Well, that's what it's all about. I mean, the sport of boxing in and of itself is not about fighting. It's about the artistry. It's about the beauty with which you can be violent. It's not about just you know throw who can throw the most punches, rock'em sock'em robots, who's got the
Who
hardest
can
chin,
get
and
who can speed run CTE the fastest?
exactly. Obviously, they make for exciting fights for people who have absolutely no idea about boxing, and that's fair enough. Okay, not everyone wants to watch boxing to see as I said, beauty, and not everyone wants to see boxing that's
Some
slick and
people watch
slippery.
Formula One for the crash, not the
Well,
overtakes.
exactly that. But then, with all that being said, Sugar Ray Leonard, one of the most beautiful boxers ever, one of
Mhm.
the slickest boxers ever, and yet still boxed with exceptional skill set, with an artistry that's very rarely seen in any kind of sport. So it is out there if people are willing to watch it and understand it. And that's
I
what you're trying to
recently,
get the fighters that you train to do. That's what you're trying to get. You're trying to get them to understand that the more they know, the more knowledge they have, the more ability they have, then the easier the actual fighting part of it all becomes, and the
yeah,
confident and competent you are in that situation.
that makes perfect sense. Yeah, when you're Uh, all right. So when you first start doing jujitsu, everything seems completely confusing and puzzling, but it tends to be slow enough that you can kind of work your way through the confusion without just absolutely panicking. When you're boxing, especially at first, there's a lot more panic, and there's not the opportunity to kind of calmly and think yourself out of it. You can't tap out of it and reset. You got to move or get hit. I've tend to notice that it's easy to lose boxers. Like if they're not really into it, they're just into the fitness of it. It's kind of easy to lose boxers to jujitsu. Once they try it, they're like, I do this. It's harder to get people who love jujitsu to try boxing. But when I'm rolling and I do jujitsu, I'm a blue belt, or I was. I'm like a white belt now. It's been years. I'm terrible now. But when I roll, uh, and I spar, I try to tell people, at least in this gym, the two feel very similar. Like when we're sparring in here, it's just as fun. It's not as chaotic, it's not as scary. We slow down, we don't try to hurt each other. Of course, there's times for, I call it green lighting. I tell the guys, try to put each other down, you know. And if somebody gets whacked too hard, we'll take a little break, and because you need that practice, you need that pressure, especially when we're going into heavier fights. But I kind of tend to find that it's easy to lose my clients to jujitsu, and it's hard to get jujitsu guys to come over and be my clients. I know your son has started jujitsu. That? Have you noticed something similar? That there's a lot of jujitsu
Well,
guys, they love
I
jujitsu,
mean,
they're into
jiu-jitsu is
it.
enormous over here in the UK now. It's absolutely enormous
Yeah,
and it's growing, and understandably
I
because
love it,
it's.
but
I mean, I've got an interest in doing it. I never thought I did, but having seen my little boy do it,
it's
it definitely
awesome.
seems like. I mean, and I've always wrestled with all of my family, with my friends, everything that is. I love it. However, I think the difference is that jiu-jitsu is immensely safe by comparison.
Hold
If
on,
you're
pause,
terrible at,
pause. Pause, big pause. I had to stop doing jujitsu because of the amount of times that I would get injured doing it. And
oh,
it's kind
I
of
don't mean in
some,
sense of injury though.
well, I know, but there's like that thing where it's like boxing is safer because I'm not getting punched in the head and concussions, yet I don't lose people to injury in boxing.
Yeah.
And I know countless people that have had ACL surgeries, shoulder surgeries. They break their fingers. I
I'm not
twisted
talking about the
my knee.
injuries though. I'm talking more about what when I'm saying it's safer in people's head from a combat perspective, the risk of something hitting them in the face or the risk of
That's what,
somebody
yeah,
grabbing them, it feels completely different from an
yeah.
external perspective. So if I've done neither combat sport, and somebody says to me, right, you can wrestle this guy. If it hurts, you can tap him. And then the other guy says, yeah, you can box this guy. You're going to get punched in the face, but do your best to make him miss. That's essentially what people are combating in their head. Like, what decision am I making? I've got a way out here. And also, let's be honest, people would much rather risk injuring themselves in the sense of a conventional medical injury than they would, being lit up by some guy, beat round the head, and made to look. See, the other thing is the mentality in jiu-jitsu is that a losing, tapping out is fine. Oh, I got out wrestled. No worries. Let's try again. Let's do that
Reset.
again.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen in boxing. If somebody flattens you, then it sticks with you, and there's no, you can't. There's a
Yeah,
difference
you
between
are right.
being hit and somebody really hurting you and going, oh yeah, actually, I
I
don't know if
still
I like
think of
that.
an overhand that you hit me with like 3 years ago, like all the time. Yeah. Yeah. When somebody outclasses you in boxing, it feels entirely different. You think about it for a long time. I never think about the times that I tap.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it, and
Mm,
the comeback from jujitsu is much quicker. And it's actually in a lot of ways it's easier to learn because you can give up so much quicker. Because I can give up so much quicker, the coach can correct me so much sooner, and then we can run through whatever I need to run through to get it better a lot faster. Whereas in
yeah.
boxing, that it's very rare. I do this actually, but it's very rare that when a round of sparring is happening, a coach will dive in and go, right, stop, you're not doing this, you're doing this, I told you that, you're not doing that. And it's also a lot
Yeah.
more challenging
Constant.
to make those corrections actionable when you're actually under pressure of being hit in the face.
Yes. Yeah, and coachability becomes a big aspect when that's happening, and you can find it in your students very fast by you call out, "Hey, tuck your chin," and they're still floating their nose out into the sky. You kind of realize real quick, I'm going to have a hard time getting through to this person. I do that all the time, but you just nailed something so perfectly. When I'm trying to coach somebody in jujitsu, I can do it in the moment, at the moment that they're doing it.
Correct.
And of course, it'll slow things down a little bit. We as coaches cannot afford to do that in the middle of a spar because it'll get the other person hurt. If
Well,
we pull
that's
their attention away in the middle of the moment, they're going to get fucking hurt. Of course, we can if we know, oh, you guys are in the long range. You're not even going to engage. I can interrupt you right now. But if there's even that slight risk that me talking to you is going to pull your attention and get you punched, I have to save it to the end. And then we'll do a little demo right in the middle, and then I'll get them to correct the behavior, and then I'll set them off for the next round. Like, there you go, you got your goal. Work on
that's
that.
exactly it. And also, the other thing with boxing where it differs
So
from
corrections come much slower in boxing. Yeah.
exactly. But the other thing with boxing that doesn't happen in jiu-jitsu is that there's the worst thing that can happen doesn't really change in jiu-jitsu. So the worst thing that can happen is that you get submitted, right? Oh, okay. The worst thing that happened, I got subbed. I've submitted. I tapped out. Fine. In boxing, I
You can
can
get
make a
choked out before you
correction.
tap.
Say that again.
You can be waking up from a dream. That's kind of the worst.
Yeah.
So what happens is you're having a great time doing jujitsu with your friends, and all of a sudden you think, oh, this is a great dream. Wow, what an awesome dream. And all of a sudden you're coming to with a crowd of people standing over you. I've never been there. That's never happened to me.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
that's kind of the worst. Or you wake up with an arm that's bent backwards, but that's
Yeah.
extremely rare. But yeah,
I
but
mean,
like you're saying, if
in terms of
normal
the volume,
parameters,
but
yeah.
with boxing, the worst thing that can happen is progressive. Like it every time you get hit, the next time can hurt more, or that you can be hit somewhere else, or any adaptation that you make can be very quickly overcome by an adaptation by the other person. There's so much scope for variation and
Oh, the big
adaptability.
one is you're never going to do jujitsu and then wonder if you're just being foggy or you have brain damage.
Correct. Well, I mean, I'd like to think that if you're being coached correctly and if your team is working correctly with you, then the risk isn't as enormous as people would like to think of that. And
You're right.
if
Yes.
you're hard sparring, James Toney obviously is an exception to the rule, doing 12 to 15 rounds every time he turned up to the gym and not doing anything else. That and you can see how he's ended up now with regards to his speech and stuff. Don't get me wrong, exceptional boxer, as you know, one of my favorite five boxers of all time. But I mean,
Defensively beautiful.
yeah, definitely not a good way to conduct yourself if you plan on having any sort of longevity and kind of mental acuity as you get older. Um, and that's in reality, somebody should have stopped him long ago from doing that if they really cared about his health, rather than worrying about the money they were making off the back of
I
him.
I agree, but what I want to let people know really when I bring up boxing and jiu-jitsu is that with a good coach and a good club and a good team, you can actively train boxing, get an understanding and a confidence of the stand-up game, and it's going to feel almost exactly the same as it does when you're training jiu-jitsu. There's the panic, the confidence, all of that will come with time. And what I want to express to some of the jiu-jitsu guys is that when you have a new guy come into your gym and you're rolling with them and it feels like you can just do whatever you want with them and they don't really know what they're doing, it's the same thing in boxing when you first start and you come in and somebody's doing that to you. But
Yeah,
it's stand up. If you give it time, the same sort of focus and attention that you've given to jujitsu, your ability to control somebody will mirror your ability to hold them and control them on the ground. You're
I
gonna
think
be
the
able to
problem with
understand.
boxing is, and I guess again, you're protected from this in jiu-jitsu. I imagine it happens infrequently, but it does happen. The you go into a boxing gym and you meet somebody who isn't controlled, who isn't respectful, who isn't a
Oh,
good
yeah,
person, and you hear a lot of these stories, and somebody just gets absolutely pieced up and beat around the ring, and then they never
that's
want to come
happened to
back,
me.
and
Yeah,
that's not what you want, and
yeah,
that and in jujitsu, if I'm me, I've never done jujitsu in my life. I go in and I'm rolling with um, the guy who trains my son, Andy Roberts. I'm rolling with him now. He's an elite jujitsu fighter. He's been doing it his whole life. He's really good. I'll
good.
last 10 seconds. I'll tap out. Cool. It's all done. So even if he is that much better than me, if anything, it makes it even easier for me because then I tap out sooner and I'm done.
Yeah.
Whereas you can't do that in boxing. You know, the only way you can tap out is running out of the ring, and then everybody abuses you for it, and so it completely emasculates you and makes you feel like
Not here. I know it's a little weird, but I tell people all the time, like, hey, we're not here to win. Like, there's times for that. There's times where I'm gonna try to push you to keep going. But like, dude, if anybody hits anybody here and you don't like it, you can say something.
well,
Like,
yeah, I
let's,
mean
yeah,
that's how it should be. That's how it should
yeah,
be. But boxing in a lot of ways, from an attitude perspective, is still fairly stuck in the dark ages with regards to all that kind of stuff.
yeah.
And
And
it doesn't
jujitsu,
really utilize the positive psychology to balance it all out.
yeah. Yeah. All right. One other thing I wanted to go over if we have the time for it, hygiene in boxing.
Okay.
So, hygiene in other martial arts is fairly commonplace and it's totally common sense. If I'm going to wrestle with you, we both need to have clean skin and clean hands, fingernails trimmed and stuff. In boxing, though, because you don't tend to make so much physical contact with yourself and the equipment or other people and equipment, I tend to notice that people will lapse their hygiene when it comes to like washing their gloves, washing their wraps. And I don't know if they become nose blind to it or whatever, but do you ever run into that where it's like, guys, you got to be clean to box? Like, you don't just come in here and throw on my gloves. I got to clean. I got to keep everything clean. If your hands are dirty, you're not making my job any easier.
The thing for me is I don't have gloves. I don't have gloves. Everyone has to bring their own gloves.
That's
I work
smart.
with a company on Instagram who let me just find their handle. I think it's Boxing Glove Spray, actually. I think, if I'm correct in thinking this. UK-based company called Boxing Glove Spray, which is basically a company called Bamboo, based in Worcestershire in the UK. And they're little sprays, and I've got a couple of bottles of that so people can utilize them. And also, most of the people that are training boxing aren't buying £150 pair of gloves. So
Right.
if you've got a 25, £30 pair of gloves, you can quite comfortably buy another pair a year down the line to stop them from, yeah, exactly, to stop them from smelling like the back end of a donkey.
Yes.
Hand wraps, if you're training twice a week, wash them after your two sessions. If you're training six times a week, wash them after two sessions. It's not get two
Yes.
pairs of wraps so that you can keep alternating between them. Leave them to air out. Don't leave them in your bag. Make sure if you have towels and t-shirts and stuff that get sweaty, you take them out, you wash them. And the other thing is, it's very easy for people to forget that the compound value of your BO gets worse and worse and worse the more you wear the same clothes. So, I had this a lot when I was boxing because I mean, I would wash my clothes after every session, but once you've worn them 10, 15 times, and I'm not saying they're just a bit sweaty, I'm saying they're soaked, so you're having to wring them out. Where then you struggle to get that out of the fabric, out of the cloth, whatever it is, and so you need to think about perhaps replacing it. So that's definitely one thing I would say. You've got to be a little bit more aware of how easy it is for all of that stuff to start smelling quite bad.
It is easy too. I'm guilty of it. Do you ever do the one where you just you toss the clothes on the ground and go out of mind and then come back to it later and you're like, "Oh, crap, shouldn't have done that."
Yeah.
Basically ruin whatever the hell you just put on. Yeah, you're like, "What?" Yeah. So I get it. But I like to tell my boxers like, "Look, two classes, wash your wraps. I don't care. Bring them into the shower with you, wash them, get soap on them, clean them out. Because I tell them if you let that bacteria fully dry into that fabric, you're fighting a losing battle.
Yeah,
And then
absolutely. I
after
mean,
a matter
the,
of times,
the
it'll
only way
just
to get rid
stay
of
in
it
there.
then is kind of crazy, like boiled
Bleach.
water and vinegar and bicarbonate of soda and all these crazy sort of mix-ups like that.
And
I
I
mean,
sell them for like $8. So you might as well just get another pair at
yeah,
that.
exactly. I
Yeah.
mean, the thing with hand wraps is as well, they are so cheap, they're so affordable that you haven't really got an excuse for either for your smelling or
Do you
for
prefer do you prefer long or shorter hand wraps?
for anyone boxing, 4 meters. For anyone actually boxing, 4 meters. I think it was that 180 inches or something. I
Yeah.
think they call it. Or or the shorter wraps, fine if you're just doing like a box fit class, for example, just punch in the bag. You just need a little bit of extra security. Um, the risk in or that I find in the shorter wraps for boxers, actually competition boxers, is landing on elbows, landing incorrectly when you're actually trying to hit people. That's where I think you see the biggest, because of the difference in the shape of what you're landing against. I think that's probably the one. Right,
Rounds.
last one, Shane, because we're running low on time now, my friend. So last thing, Usyk Dubois 2.
Mm,
I've obviously just put out a
yes.
review video of that. What are your thoughts on the fight?
All right. I'm I'm thinking Usyk. I've always been kind of on Usyk's side. Uh, Dubois does seem to handle pressure very well, and he makes smart decisions at the right time. I still think though it's going to come down to sort of a battle of intelligence between the two, and I don't think Dubois will get lucky enough with his decisions to beat Usyk. I think Usyk's just going to make more correct decisions more efficiently, more often, and he's probably going to walk away with the decision.
Nice pick. I think, yeah, I think that's right. From the intelligence perspective, I think
I'm not saying
probably.
Dubois isn't as smart as Usyk. I'm saying not many people who box are as smart as Usyk.
Yeah,
Period. Like,
yeah. I mean, I would say Dubois is probably definitely a bit low on the intellect front when it comes to general life. However, from a boxing perspective, his experiences have done wonders for him, and he's grown a lot. However, the experience that he's had, even in such a short time as such a young man, is incomparable to the experience of Usyk with
what
the.
what do you think he would need to do to win? Dubois.
Well,
If he were to win, how do you see that happening?
I would. Okay, so I'm Dubois' coach, so he's got me in for the camp. We've worked together, so he knows exactly what I want from him. What I would say is I would encourage him to consistently step to his left and throw the right hand as he is stepping to his left. um, to draw Usyk into slipping the straight right hand as he goes. Usyk then would slip and pivot. Generally, that's where he would kind of resort to as he then slipped and pivot from the southpaw stance, turn round, keep him building up at that, keep him working at that, keep him trying to get comfortable with that movement. And then as I stepped to the right after 2 or 3 rounds of creating that pattern, I'd start stepping to the left and then coming back with a big left hook. And then I'd be working on the jab up and down throughout, just jabbing up and down throughout, up and down, never jabbing at the same pace, never jabbing at the same power, never jabbing at the same point. I'd jab the left glove, I'd jab the right glove, I'd jab the forehead, I'd jab the throat, I'd jab the belly, I'd double it, I'd triple it. Just busy, busy, busy with that jab, and every opportunity he gets, pick a body shot.
Now, I just had a weird scenario come into my head. It's the end of the second round. He comes back to you and he says, he's beating me on the jab. You say, keep jabbing. And he says, I'm trying. Or it's not working. Even though you know the key is to keep jabbing, his confidence, maybe he's lost the jab game. How are we getting that back?
It just comes off the back of the defense then. So first thing is right, stop trying to jab first, jab
Take
second and
it away.
third, jab second and third, take the jab away and respond to it. And then also utilize the rear hand as more of a jabbing, as more of a spear-like shot. So rather than trying to drive it through with too much impact, shoot it out as we saw when Mayweather competed against Robert Guerrero. And as we've seen almost every time when he's boxed any southpaws, the left hand comes higher and the right hand shoots out as more of a lead, more of a relaxed shot, just to try and disrupt the pattern and disrupt the flow. But the defense thing would, yeah, take the jab away first. If he's getting there first, defend his jab and then respond. Defend his jab and then respond. And all
So
of those responses, all of that work should come from a defensive standpoint anyway. You don't want to just be marching in there doing nothing but punching, because that's just a quick way to get beat up. And I think a lot of people think Dubois needs to just steam in and try and overpower him, but that's like saying when I don't know what your kind of English football soccer knowledge is, but that's like saying we used to play in Cristiano Ronaldo. What we need to do is we need to try and get in there and tackle him. If we can try and tackle him, that'd be a really good thing to do, as if people weren't trying that for the 15 years prior. It's just silly. Obviously people will go, right, yeah, just step on his chest and throw as many punches as you can. But how are you getting there, and how are you getting there without being hit? And why is he staying still? And it just doesn't work that easily. It's not that simple.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. All right. So yeah, for us it would be something like uh how do we stop Tom Brady? Simple, tackle him.
Yeah,
It's like, yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
everyone's been trying to do that. Yeah.
Tackle him before he throws the ball. Well,
Yeah, no,
that's what we
no
try and
shit.
do.
Yeah, all
Right.
right. So
Well,
what
that,
is
my
what
friend.
does Usyk need to do? Real
Oh,
quick. What
oh no,
does Usyk
he's
need
just
to
got to
do?
box, mate. If he just boxes the way he always boxes,
That's what I
uses
thought.
lateral movement, the thing is his style is so nuanced and it's so well developed that from an adaptability perspective, it does it of its own accord. So it's geared to completely and consistently change and adapt to whatever the other person's doing anyway, because that's what all the traps he does do. That's how it happens
He's
as he
just
sets
quite
those traps.
complete. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean you'd struggle to find a more complete boxer.
I love
So
Usyk.
I think it's going to be a comfortable night for him after maybe a little bit of troubles early on. Um, I think we'll call it a day there then, mate.
All right. I
So last
appreciate
thing I'm going to say is,
it.
why do pirates always win boxing matches?
You got me.
Because they have a killer hook.
Ah,
Yeah,
come
nice,
on, man.
classic.
Come on.
Brilliant.
I don't
Right,
like how you hit me on those. That's not fair.
give your pages a shout out, mate, just so everybody knows where they can find you.
Yeah, look up Crowley Boxing Club on Facebook, Instagram. Give us a like, give us a follow. I'm gonna start making more content, tutorial content, stuff like that. Put it on YouTube and Facebook and stuff. Keep an eye out for that in the future.
Brilliant. Cool. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed that. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to try and do
Thank you,
these,
Matt.
every week, fortnight, whatever we can manage, really, because obviously we both squeeze it in around very busy lives. But we'd like to make this as regular as we can, so we can talk all things boxing. Shane, thanks for that, buddy.
Thank you guys. Like, comment, subscribe.
All
Tell
that
us if
good
you got
stuff.
something you want us to talk about.
Cheers, guys. Thank you all. Bye.